Hello everyone, Big Italy 42 here with you once again for the DraftKings Daily Trap. Strange little two-game slate early on, starting at 145. I want no part of that. If you want to chase some money early on, you go for it. I'm going to sit out, focus my attention on tonight's slate, starting at 710, where we've got some elite pitching options, and some of them in good spots, but also really pricey. Chris Sale, $11,300, $700 more than Felix Hernandez was last night. Matching up against the Twins, who, as everyone knows, have been a terrible offense so far this season. In fact, 303 plate appearances is the third highest against lefties of any team so far this year. And their .282 team WOBA and .083 team ISO tells you they don't have any power, they're not making great contact. 19.1% strikeout rate isn't terrible, but Chris Sale, as we know, one of the better strikeout pitchers in the game, only a 21.6% rate this year. Part of that due to, I believe it was a 2-strikeout game against the Royals last time out. Also, Twins not a particularly patient team, walking 6.9% of the time. So a lot of things going in his favor, but he's pretty tough to fit tonight, $11,300. So obviously, if you want to go that route, he's the top option. He's got the highest upside, so I don't blame you going that route. I'll probably have him more in tournaments than cash games tonight. It remains to be seen. If there's some value that pops up, then I'm obviously feeling more than comfortable playing him in my cash games as well. Just $11,300, really, really expensive. Steven Strasburg next up. We know his deal. He's great at home. He's not so great on the road. And in general this year, he has not been good. 1.63 whip so far, facing the Mets tonight. And, you know, this is the Mets team that surprisingly has been a really, really tough offense so far. I mean, they went through that, I believe it was an 11-game winning streak, tearing the cover off the ball, even with David Wright out. So, I mean, they're not exactly a pushover at Citi Field here. And you look at the Mets' numbers against righties, though, this year, not impressive. They've got a .292 team WOBA, a 112 team ISO. Good thing that they do walk 9.2% of the time. That's good for them. 17.7% strikeout rate tells you they're putting the ball in play. Strasburg hasn't been dominant either. Just over a 20% strikeout rate, 6.4% walk rate, and 355 WOBA allowed to lefties, 334 to righties. Strasburg is a GPP-only option for me tonight. Vegas, as usual, likes him, but it's a pick-em between he and Jacob deGrom, who I'll get to in a second here. 6.5 run total, so I don't want many hitters from this game. I think both pitchers are in a fine spot. Washington absolutely mashing the ball right now, so that's not to say that I'm going to be attacking Jacob deGrom that much either, but Strasburg, tournament only for me. I don't like targeting him on the road, and he hasn't pitched particularly well. Jacob deGrom next up. Already mentioned this is a 6.5 run total at Pick'em. Got slaughtered by the Yankees last time out, giving up 3 homers in 5 innings, 6 earned runs, 11 fly balls is what's really concerning there. deGrom has had big-time troubles with keeping the ball on the ground this year. Nearly a 42% fly ball rate. Lefties are destroying him. A .431 WOBA allowed, 3 homers already to lefties. I mean, he had a great game against Miami, a great game against Philly. Faced this same Washington team, and he did fairly well. Six innings, 2 earned runs, had 6 Ks. So, I mean, that was a fine performance. And looking on the other side of it, I mean, Washington's hot right now. They scored 13 runs each last 2 games. We certainly don't expect them to do that again tonight. But deGrom hasn't looked dominant, so he's once again a tournament-only option for me. I'm just not feeling really comfortable with him right now in that fly ball rates. Obviously, Citi Field, more of a pitcher's park, but just a guy that I'm not actively targeting too much. Shelby Miller has been fine. He's $7,400. I don't mind him as a cheap cash game play. The Reds have been hitting the ball, but not particularly well. Now shifting over to Atlanta, Turner Field, obviously not the bandbox that Great American Ballpark is. And, I mean, he hasn't pitched deep into games. He's always had those struggles with walks and throwing too many pitches. 10.1% walk rate you don't like. But what you do love is his 57.1% ground ball rate. And righties only hitting 231 off him. Lefties, 231 WOBA, 281 WOBA to lefties. So a lot of things go on in Shelby Miller's favor tonight. I actually like him quite a bit here in this spot at home against the Reds. I'll be playing him. He's a -110 favorite, but only a 7-run total, so Vegas thinks this one stays low as well. Don't mind him at all as an option. Some other guys I want to throw out there for tournaments. James Paxton, we know what Houston does. They strike out a ton. They are a better team against lefties than they are against righties, so keep that in mind. But this year they haven't been particularly great against lefties either. 309 WOBA allowed. Team 160 ISO is what really scares you there. But Paxton has done a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. in his young career, 48.5% so far this year, but he has allowed 4 homers to right-handed bats. So that right there concerns you a little bit, but what does not concern you is the 24% strikeout rate for the Astros. Pair that with a just over 20% strikeout rate with Paxton. He's got big upside in this one, but he's risky. $6,800, priced pretty fairly for all those factors you consider there. Definitely not touching Danny Duffy. Alfredo Simon is only $6,000. The guy's been tremendous. Right-handers, 1 for 23 against this guy. And, I mean, faced Pittsburgh, New York in 2 of his last 3 games. Was great against both of them. He's given up 1 earned run over his last 3 starts. 8 innings, 7 1/3, 6.2. Not a big strikeout guy. He had 7 against the Yankees. You're not expecting that again. Kansas City strikes out the least of any team in the league. So if he can pitch deep, eat up some innings at 6K, I don't think he's a bad option at all. I do like a couple bats on the other side, but I mean 6K for a guy that eats up innings. Sign me up for that. Daniel Norris, a lefty against Cleveland. I'm going to be considering him. Coming off a great performance against Tampa Bay. Their offense is pretty bad right now, though, so keep that with a grain of salt. But he did go 7 innings, just 5 hits, 1 earned, 7 Ks last time. And a lot of things that I do like about him, but there's a lot of things I don't like. I don't like the 11.4% walk rate. I don't like the 53.4% fly ball rate. That's terrifying. Been really bad against lefties, 463 WOBA allowed. And he's allowed 3 home runs to righties. Fortunately, it's a lefty-dominant lineup for the Indians, so I think that he can definitely be attacked with, or they can definitely be attacked with any above-average lefty, and I do think that he's an above-average lefty. I mean, he's young, he's developing, but I think he's certainly in play tonight. Moving on to catcher, A.J. Brzezinski, once again, really cheap. Mike Leake, as you know, tough on righties, not so tough on the lefties. 360 WOBA allowed, 4 homers already on the season. Brzezinski swinging a hot bat. I mean, among catchers on tonight's slate, he is averaging by far the most fantasy points per game at 11.2. Great price for him tonight. I'll be playing him quite a bit. Some other options, you've got Carlos Santana. Obviously, he's a switch hitter and be hitting from the right side against Daniel Norris tonight. Already mentioned his struggles with the long ball. So if you're targeting anyone for the Indians, for me, it's going to be Carlos Santana. I like that matchup for him, but he's 4,500, first base or catcher eligible. Evan Gattis should be back in the lineup today against James Paxton. He's $3,900. Got a couple home runs. He's starting to get things going. Came in last night, pinch hit, got a single. So I don't think he's in a bad spot at that price. Sal Perez, I hate the lineup spot. He's been batting around 7th, so that's kind of taking him a little bit out of play for me tonight. If you see Jose Lobaton in the lineup tonight against Jacob deGrom, Jacob deGrom, I mentioned, has been really bad against lefties. So at 2,800, if he's in the lineup, I like him as a punt. Same goes for James McCann. He's going against lefty. Alex Avila in the lefty-lefty matchup. He did already sit out yesterday, though. You obviously don't think McCann's going to hit it inside the park home run again. But he did have 3 hits yesterday. So, I mean, he's in play as a punt if he's in the lineup. I don't really anticipate that he will be, but just throwing that out there as a cheap catcher option if you do see him in the lineup. First base, a ton of options as usual. Miguel Cabrera, 2 home runs last night, 37 DraftKings points. He's got 26 or more in 2 of his last 4. I mean, the guy's still one of the best hitters this world has ever seen. $5,000 first base or third base eligible. I like that. Freddie Freeman, another lefty against Mike Leake, $4,700. The guy's got double-digit fantasy points, 12 or more in 3 of his last 4. Starting to heat up. I like him a great deal tonight. Todd Frazier in play here against Shelby Miller. Tournament only, of course, for him. All of the righty bats for Toronto in play tonight against TJ House. He has been absolutely abysmal. He has allowed 13 earned runs in 7 2/3 innings against right-handed batters. So Edwin Encarnacion batting 190 on the season. I don't care about that. At $4,500, he has 4 homers. He's definitely got the potential to go yard again. A lot of these Toronto bats in play for me. Chris Carter is actually starting to heat up. I don't like his $4,400 price tag, but I think that could scare some people off him. I mean, he's finally got a couple home runs. He's getting on base. He's walking. I mean, yeah, he's still going to strike out a lot, but no negatives for outs here, so you don't really care how they come. Chris Carter, not in a bad spot against Paxton for tournaments. Not a guy I'm actively targeting, though. Victor Martinez has really struggled. I find it hard to pay his price tag at $4,300 tonight, the way he's been swinging the bat. I don't think he's had a single extra base hit all season. Kendrys Morales, if you want a nice tournament play, $4,200. He's swinging a hot bat still. Michael Kadire, $3,500 coming off a home run last night. Yes, he's facing righty-righty matchup with Steven Strasburg, but $3,500. first base or outfield eligible. I don't mind him at all tonight. Second base, Altuve against a lefty. Yes, please. $4,800. Guy's one of the best in the game against lefties. I absolutely love him tonight, batting at the top of that Houston order. He's finally starting to score some runs right now, so some encouraging signs. If they get it going, he's usually a big part of it. Looking down a little bit deeper, if you want a tournament play, Brian Dozier. Yes, he's going against Chris Sale, but Chris Sale has not been particularly tough this season, and we know that Brian Dozier, one of the better hitters in the game, also against lefties. So he has scored 6 runs over his last 4 games. The guy's getting on base. Still just 1 home run this season, but nice contrarian tournament play for you there. Not touching Jason Kipnis and lefty-lefty. If you want to chase that power, you go ahead. I'm not doing that. Ian Kinsler, a guy that's in play once again, should be a popular play against Danny Duffy, who has been really, really good against lefties, as he usually is, but really bad against righties at .362 WOBA allowed. So I like Ian Kinsler there. Devin Travis, still a sexy play, $3,600. Get yourself some exposure. The guy's absolutely on fire right now. And Danny Valencia against a bad lefty, guy that always goes under-owned. $455 on this young season. He only plays against lefties usually, and I mean, the guy's just incredible. I mean, he had 4 hits against the lefty on the 18th, 1, 2, 1 the last 3 games after that. I mean, play him against the lefty. Second base, third base eligibility. Third base, as you'll see, really, really thin. I think I'll be playing him at third base tonight. Big fan of his there. Elsewhere at second base, as far as cheap options go, no thanks. I'm not really going to be digging down too deep unless I see someone in a great lineup spot. Third base, there's a reason why this guy is your most expensive hitter on the day, and his name is Josh Donaldson, and his numbers tell you that he destroys left-handed pitching, and TJ House just so happens to be a very, very generous player to opposing righties. Josh Donaldson, probably going to be one of the highest owned players on the slate tonight. Not a lot of expensive pitching that you're probably going to pay for, at least paying for 2 expensive pitchers, so should be able to fit Donaldson. He's your top option at third base if you can get him in there. No problems with him at all. Mike Moustakas, if you're targeting Alfredo Simon at $3,800, should be hitting second once again. He's putting up good numbers, batting .350 on the season. He's getting on. 8 hits in his last 3 games. I mean, he's just a hot hitter, so you're going to go ahead. You're the one to get some exposure there. Jose Iglesias, third base, shortstop eligibility. If he's in the lineup and not batting ninth, I like him at $3,200. Marwin Gonzalez is an interesting player. Switch hitter, batted second last night. If you need a cheap punt, third base, shortstop as well. The guy's not hitting the ball particularly well, but if you get him second, Jose Altuve you expect is going to be getting on base. Some batters, some hitters behind him. Valbuena's a lefty-lefty. You don't like that. Maybe Springer bumps up into the 3-hole. That's a lineup starting to score some runs. So I like him if you want to get part of that stack. And really, if you're just punting, $3K is not a bad price for him either at a weak shortstop or weak third base position. All right, shortstop. Mike Aviles is a guy that I'm really looking at. Shortstop or outfield eligibility. Should be batting second against lefty Daniel Norris tonight. So I do like him a great deal there at $3,200. Just too cheap a price tag. I'll likely be going ahead and just putting him in all of my lineups, assuming he's batting second. Get him in there at shortstop. I love him tonight in that spot against the lefty. Zach Cozart batted second again yesterday. Didn't do anything, went 0 for 4. But if he's batting up there, I mean, you don't mind playing him in the 2-hole. Not a particularly great hitter, but $3,600. I mean, you could do much worse than him. Outside of that, nobody I like cheap. If Aviles, like I said, if Aviles is batting second, it's Aviles for me. Moving on to the outfield, Jose Bautista, righty against TJ House. Check. Next. George Springer, I'm a huge fan. I've been talking about him. He's a guy that I've loved since he came up all of last season. He's starting to get it going, really. He's stealing some bases. He's hitting for some power. Still batting under 200 this year, but the guy has massive, massive upside. Love him tonight. Another guy I love who always flies under the radar due to the Royals on the front of his jersey, Alex Gordon. The guy's mashing the ball right now. He's got 7 hits in his last 3 games, including 2 home runs. The guy's getting on base. He tried to steal a couple bases in those games, too. Got caught both times. But, I mean, Alex Gordon, big-time upside here against Alfredo Simon, who struggles against lefties. So I'm a big fan of his there. Elsewhere, J.D. Martinez against a lefty. Yes, get yourself some J.D. Martinez in your tournaments. Same with Yoenis Cespedes. Martinez 4.3, Cespedes 4.8. Kind of flip-flop. They were a little bit different before. Melky Cabrera going off against Trevor May today. The guy's not off to a particularly good start, but he's got a nice lineup spot. Should be batting second again. I don't mind him against Trevor May. Trevor May actually hasn't been terrible. recently. So I'm not targeting him a ton, but you can certainly go that route. Rajai Davis, this is a message for Brad Ausmus. He had better be leading off today against a lefty, especially a lefty who struggles against righties. Rajai Davis, great splits against lefties. Big fan of his at 4,200. Bryce Harper mentioned Jacob deGrom struggling against lefties. I like him a lot tonight if you can get him in there. At 4,100, his price just keeps dropping despite the fact that he's producing. I like that. Denard Span, this is not chasing the 2 home runs in the last 2 games. Don't chase that. He's not going to continue to hit for power. He's not a power hitter. But what I am looking at is his 7 hits in the last 2 games. Now facing off against deGrom, struggling against lefties, yada, yada. You do the math here. Leading off for the hottest offense in baseball. I do like him at $4,000, but keep in mind he's going to be a highly owned player. So, take that however you'd like. You're going to want to get him probably in some cash games around that price, but tournaments, I don't blame you if you stay away because he is going to be a very highly owned player. Looking down cheap, already mentioned Michael Kadire at 3,500. He's outfield eligible as well. Ryan Rayburn against the lefty should be batting right around 5th or 6th. I like him a lot at $3,300 in the outfield. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot to like down cheap. If Cameron Maybin has a nice spot, I don't mind him at $2,800, but he's been stuck down there in the 8 hole recently. So that will do it for us today. Thank you for hanging out with me here. Follow us on Twitter at DFCafe. I'm BigItaly42. Great content as always on dailyfantasycafe.com to help you on tonight's slate. I will see you guys again tomorrow.